Le tueur a été trouvé. Et Francine Beaulieu.
Je demande à quiconque a des informations de collaborer avec la police.
At the beginning of the film, a woman was shown sleeping on the sidewalk in a city of Montreal, Canada. However, from the clothes she was wearing, it was clear that this woman was not a homeless person. She was Kellyanne, and she was a single woman who worked as a model. Not long after, when the morning came, Kellyanne went to the courthouse, which was located near where she had slept the night before. It was revealed that the trial was expected to last for the next 2 months, to investigate a recent case involving video evidence from the dark web, and Kellyanne was willing to sleep on the sidewalk just to follow this case because it turned out that she was a hacker, and the dark web was her playground as one.
Marcel Godbout est maintenant ouverte.
Ces chefs d'accusation, que plaidez-vous?
Procureur de la Couronne dans cette affaire.
Before the trial started inside the courtroom, the prosecutors, defense attorneys, and the families of the victims were present. At the same time, the perpetrator was also presented in a room behind a glass cover. Kellyanne then sat there with a very cold expression on her face as he witnessed the process. Soon, the judge opened the trial by explaining that a gnarly video evidence of what the perpetrator did would be shown during the proceedings. The perpetrator himself was a man named Ludovic Chevalier, and he was charged with kidnapping, murder, and producing content with very inappropriate material for the dark web, where he recorded his acts and streamed them live on a platform called Red Room. Red Room itself was a live streaming site on the dark web that has become an urban legend. On that site, viewers could watch live broadcasts of violence, and could even request specific types of torture that the host would use on his victims. For that purpose, the viewers had to pay with cryptocurrency, and the cost was very high. After explaining this, the judge continued the trial by inviting the public prosecutor to give her opinion. A prosecutor named Yasmine then introduced herself and turned on a monitor screen that showed photos of the 3 victims.
Au terme de tous ces témoignages, je vous ai dit que j'ai failli abandonner et aux familles des victimes.
The 3 victims were all girls, namely Kim, Justine, and Camille, and all of them were underage girls with blue eyes and blonde hair. Kim was a 6-year-old girl who loved playing hockey and had a bright future in that sport, as she had even reached the national level. Meanwhile, Justine was a student who liked ballet and was 14 years old at that time. The last victim was Camille, who was a 3-year-old girl and had just started junior high school, and was an exemplary student who was very active in many different school activities. The future for all 3 of these girls certainly still had a long way to go, but the lives of the 3 of them had to end in a tragic way. Yasmine added that the perpetrator committed these heinous crimes and recorded them in the garage of his house. Yasmine also said that the Red Room platform, which people previously thought was just a myth, had now been proven to exist because of this case. For this case, the FBI had found 2 videos to use as evidence, which were the torture videos of Kim and Justine. However, the video evidence of Camille had not been found until now. In both of the videos that were found, the perpetrator was seen wearing a mask, leaving only the perpetrator's eyes visible. Because of that, the prosecutor explained that they used the testimony of facial recognition experts who were able to identify that Chevalier was the perpetrator in the videos. After witnessing the video, the judge then invited the attorney named Robert, who was in charge of defending Chevalier, to give his opinion. He then started his explanation, saying that even though several experts and jurors believed that the perpetrator was Chevalier, he knew it was not his client, especially because his client had no criminal record at all. The prosecutor quickly argued that the perpetrator in the video had blue eyes and a body posture just like Chevalier, but Robert said that the expert evidence could not be called accurate because the evidence was only based on eye analysis and body movements. He even claimed that there were thousands of men who had similar characteristics to Chevalier, and for this reason, he asked the jurors to be able to judge the case fairly. During the trial, it was also discovered that the torture videos of both Kim and Justine were stored on Chevalier's personal computer, further incriminating his position. However, Robert believed that it was possible for the real killer to have hacked into his computer. He explained that the real perpetrator could have put the video files there and directed all the evidence toward Chevalier to frame him. After the trial that day ended, outside the courtroom, many reporters were waiting to interview people. They then approached Kellyanne, who happened to pass by, and asked her why she was attending the trial, knowing she was not a witness or a member of the victims' families. Being faced with that question, Kellyanne simply replied that she just wanted to see the perpetrator in person. On the other hand, a girl named Clementine was also interviewed, and she confidently told the reporters that Chevalier was not the real killer, as she believed that all the evidence pointing to him was deliberately created to manipulate the situation and hide the real killer. Then, when the reporters asked about the bodies of the victims that were found at Chevalier's house, she said that she still believed that it was a form of manipulation. She wondered how a person in a video wearing a mask could be identified as Chevalier, and claimed that the judge did not conduct a fair trial. At this point, there was actually a lot of evidence pointing to Chevalier, such as his identical eyes and body shape to the man in the video files that were found on his computer, and even the bodies of the victims that were found in his house. However, the trial had to continue until there was even stronger evidence to point out who the real killer was. After the trial that day, Kellyanne went home, and when she arrived at her apartment, she immediately opened her computer and asked an AI assistant she had made by herself to read her email messages, where she was asked to attend a photo shoot for a website. At the same time, Kellyanne listened to the email message. Her other computer screen showed that she was trading and also playing online poker, and this revealed that, besides working as a model, she was also a trader and a poker player. Later, after she finished her work, Kellyanne immediately took a shower and turned off the lights in her house. She then took her bag and boarded a train that night, and just like before, she headed to the sidewalk to sleep there so she could get to the trial of Chevalier the next day. However, the very next day, while she was still sleeping, she was suddenly woken up by Clementine, the same girl who had said that Chevalier was not the real killer. She then offered Kellyanne some coffee, and even though it seemed awkward at first, they were able to get closer to each other through a short chat that morning.
Yes, c'est drôle. Tu penses qu'il essaie de faire un cadeau?
Long story short, in the courtroom, the parents of Camille gave their testimony. Her father said that the photo they were looking at was the last photo of his daughter while she was still alive. He also added that before she disappeared, Camille was wearing her school uniform. After that, the prosecutor showed a photo of clothing that looked exactly like the clothes found buried at the house of Chevalier, and that proved that the victim was indeed Camille. The mother then added that Camille wore braces on her teeth, so the prosecutors revealed that they had found a jawbone that still had braces on it. This meant that the body found in the house of Chevalier was indeed the body of Camille. When the trial took a break, Clementine went to have lunch with Kellyanne. While eating her food, Clementine explained that even though the evidence found in Chevalier's house had proven that the body was indeed Camille, she still believed he wasn't the real killer, as she suspected that it was just a trick by the council to trap him. Upon hearing that, to argue against Clementine's defense, Kellyanne explained that the victim's blood was found on that uniform. However, Clementine again replied that the blood could have come from wounds or other things that Camille experienced. At that moment, while Clementine kept talking about Chevalier, Kellyanne was focused on playing online poker on her cell phone. She then told Clementine that by winning just one game, she could at least give her $20 to pay for their meal. Long story short, when the trial for the day was over, Camille's mother made a statement to the reporters that the person responsible for the death of her daughter must be punished as severely as possible.
Heureusement, on se tient beaucoup ensemble, les parents.
Ça vous fait quoi de côtoyer Chevalier à chaque jour?
Tombe de nos filles, vous devriez avoir honte.
That night, Kellyanne tried to find more information about Chevalier's case by focusing on Camille because there was no video evidence of her torture yet. This is when she showed that she was a very skilled hacker. She used many different sites on the dark web to get the information she needed. For the Star, Kellyanne searched for any information about Camille's mother, and from her search, she managed to get Camille's home address by zooming in on a police video she watched. Then, she looked for the address on a map and found out that the house used a digital lock on the door, and within just seconds, she had gained access to Camille's mother's email and learned the password to the door of the house. Then, after she finished all that, she continued her night by exercising to keep her body fit. The next day, Kellyanne went to a studio for a photo shoot session, and when she was about to go home after that, she met Clementine, who was running out of money. Feeling sorry for her, she immediately invited her to stay at her house for a while until the trial was over, and Clementine was happy to accept that offer. Long story short, upon arriving at the apartment, Clementine looked amazed by everything she saw. She finally learned that Kellyanne was a model and a professional online poker player. They then ordered pizza and ate together. While they ate, Clementine told Kellyanne about herself. She said that she came from Quebec and had traveled all the way to Montreal just to support Chevalier, and even though she did not know him at all, she was still sure that he was not the real culprit. A few moments later, a comedy show on TV was shown, and they began to talk about Chevalier's case, as they called out Chevalier and made fun of him. Then, At the end of the show, they opened a telephone line for anyone who wanted to give their opinion on the case. In this moment, because she felt it was an opportunity to express her opinion, an irritated Clementine immediately called the number and was connected to the TV show right away. In front of a large audience and broadcast throughout the entire country, Clementine firmly stated that Chevalier was innocent and told everyone that they should not call him a criminal without clear evidence. She even called the host of the show a shameless person who had brainwashed his audience. Upon hearing that statement, the host was very shocked and could only remain silent before he hung up the phone. In the end, before the show ended, the host suggested that Clementine should go to see a psychiatrist because he thought she was crazy for defending Chevalier, who was clearly a murderer. The next day, Clementine was still thinking about her phone call from the night before, and she felt very disappointed because it seemed like everyone was accusing Chevalier of the crimes. Seeing that she was having a bad mood, to cheer her up, Kellyanne then invited her to go play paddle, and after playing for a while, Clementine finally smiled again. Later, while they were riding the train, Kellyanne explained how the online poker game she played actually worked. She told Clementine that the game did not only rely on luck, but she must be patient and analyze everything without letting her emotions get in the way. She added that she also had to take advantage of players who are already emotional, so she can exploit their mistakes. Then, when she finally won against her opponents, she would feel a great sense of satisfaction. The way Kellyanne played poker was the same approach that she used to follow Chevalier's case. She began by analyzing the situation, gathering information, and then planning to prove her points with valid evidence that she would reveal later. That night, Kellyanne and Clementine headed back to the sidewalk to sleep so they could attend the court hearing the next day. The next day, inside the courtroom, the judge was ready to play 2 videos that showed how Chevalier executed Kim and Justine. However, because these videos contained very graphic scenes, he only allowed the families of the victims and the prosecutors to stay in the room, while all other people who were not involved were asked to leave the courtroom, meaning that Clementine and Kellyanne had to wait outside in the hallway. This made Clementine feel very annoyed because she wanted to be inside to see the video. A few moments later, the sound of a saw could be heard coming from the courtroom, meaning that in the video, the killer was using a saw to carry out his cruel acts. After hearing the sounds, Kellyanne suddenly said that after this part there would be no more screams to be heard, meaning that she had already watched the 2 videos that were currently playing inside. Knowing that, Clementine was very curious and asked how Kellyanne was able to find those 2 secret videos. However, Kellyanne simply replied that she knew where to look for them, and that could only mean she found them on the dark web. A few moments later, officers were seen carrying an unconscious person out of the courtroom, and this showed just how graphic the videos really were. On the other hand, Clementine was still very curious and begged Kellyanne to let her see the videos, but before doing so, Kellyanne warned her at first that the scenes would make her feel very uncomfortable. However, Clementine still insisted on seeing them, so when they got home, Kellyanne immediately showed the videos to her, and while they watched, she explained how the perpetrator walked and described his movements. She also explained that the characteristics of the person in the video matched Chevalier. On the other hand, Clementine watched with a scared face, showing how sadistic the killer was. Then, once the first video was finished, Kellyanne was about to play the second video when Clementine tried to stop her because she felt that she was unable to watch anymore. However, Kellyanne still showed the video because that was what Clementine had asked for in the first place, and she had warned her. As the evening approached, Kellyanne and Clementine headed to the sidewalk as usual so they could attend the trial the next day. However, when they arrived, Clementine suddenly said goodbye and decided to return to her hometown. It turned out that after watching the videos provided by Kellyanne, her support for Chevalier began to waver, as she saw for herself that the figure of the perpetrator was very similar to Chevalier. The next day in the courtroom, an expert explained that the dark web could only be accessed through a network called Tor, which functioned to protect the privacy of its users. However, some bad people exploited it to carry out illegal activities. Furthermore, the expert said that Red Room could not work on the Tor network because the connection speed would be too slow to stream video smoothly. However, the Tor network had been upgraded recently, and it was now possible to access live streaming videos, proving that illegal sites like Red Room really did exist and could be accessed through the Tor network to keep the users anonymous. That evening, Kellyanne opened her Bitcoin account and then contacted someone on the dark web to take part in a video auction session, knowing that the video being auctioned was the video of Camille's torture, which had not been found by the police yet. By using an account ID named Lady of Shallot, she immediately started a conversation. The anonymous person then told her that customers had a very high demand for this video and that the price would be very high, but with a little bit of hesitation, she answered that she was ready. The next day, Kellyanne went to Camille's house and used the password for the digital house key that she had stolen earlier to get inside and look for any extra information she might be able to find. At the next trial, Kellyanne was present again, but this time she did not have Clementine by her side as usual because she had returned to Quebec. Then, when journalists outside tried to interview her, she just ignored them completely and went straight to the courtroom. Later that day, while she was exercising at her home, Kellyanne received a call from her agency, which told her that they had sent an email to inform her that her photo shoot was being cancelled. They explained that they had just found out she was addicted to online poker, so they decided to replace her with someone new for that. Upon hearing that, Kellyanne looked very shocked, but she was forced to accept the fact that she was being fired. The next day, Kellyanne seemed very frustrated by what had happened to her, but she still showed at the courtroom. She then put on a school uniform, a blonde wig, and used fake braces for her teeth. She deliberately changed how she looked so that she would look just like Camille did before she disappeared. Then, when Camille's parents saw her, they looked very shocked because of the resemblance, so the police eventually came over to her and forced her to leave the trial because they thought she was trying to make a commotion.
Madame, suivez-moi s'il vous plaît.
As she was leaving, Chevalier looked at her calmly and waved his hand as if he were saying goodbye. However, Kellyanne stared back at him with sharp eyes, as if she were marking him as an enemy that she must defeat. Once she was back at home, Kellyanne accessed her computer and started talking again to the anonymous person from the dark web. From the chat, the person wanted to verify who she was before she could enter the auction. The person told her to write a specific code on a piece of paper and then take a photo of herself holding that paper, and only after she did everything they asked, she was allowed to join the auction. The person then told her that they would notify her through a landline phone to avoid traces. Long story short, Kellyanne went to a public payphone to pick up the call from her contact on the dark web, and even though it wasn't clear what they said to each other, it was clear that she was in for the auction. Upon arriving home, Kellyanne opened her crypto account and realized that all of her assets were not enough to enter the auction, so she was forced to play a poker game and go all in, hoping that she could win so she would have enough Bitcoin to participate in the video auction. Luckily, she won the poker game, and she now had a total of 21.59 Bitcoins. After the game was over, Kellyanne immediately joined the auction that was already happening. At that time, the bidding was getting higher and had already reached 18 Bitcoins. So, to claim the highest bid, she made the last bid with all 21.5 Bitcoins that she owned, and with such a high bid, she was declared the winner of the auction. A few moments later, Kellyanne received the video and watched it with a very tense face. In this video, it was clearly visible that Chevalier was indeed the killer because he was not wearing a mask. Thanks to this, the video would be the strong evidence that the police needed to bring Chevalier to justice. After that, Kellyanne went to Camille's house and went inside using the password she already knew. She then entered Camille's room and took a selfie as proof for herself that she had defeated Chevalier. She then placed a flash drive containing the video on the bedside table of Camille's parents' bedroom. The next day, the media reported that Chevalier had confessed to all of his crimes. Thanks to the video evidence that Kellyanne gave to Camille's parents, there was no other way for Chevalier to evade the accusation because his face was clearly visible while he was torturing Camille. Meanwhile, in a TV show, Clementine made a statement saying that she had lost her mind because she had fallen too much in love with Chevalier. She finally realized that the person she was dreaming about was a person who did very horrible things.